hard, tough.
Being an expat is heavily romanticized.
Like, what is an expat, right?
In a way, I've always felt like an expat.
It changes every day.
Felt as if I'm a foreigner in my own land.
I never saw myself too much as an expat.
Hello everyone, my name is Edu and this is Ready Go Expat. In today's video, I decided to ask some of my friends who lived in China with me a couple of years ago, what is it like to be an expat? How would you define being an expat or expat life? And here are their answers. Ready? Go.
I never saw myself too much as an expat. When I started going away from Portugal, there was a big fight on the language. Should we call expats or emigrants? What's the difference between an expat and an emigrant? Man, I'm just a guy that works outside of his country, and I take my expertise where I think people need it, and I don't see it as much as I'm working outside of my countries. I'm working in the world, so I'm doing what I try to do best where people need me to do it.
It changes every day, and it changes depending on your age and also the country. Because for me, in one place it has been really exciting, and I was in love with being an expat. And in other countries, other places, I was feeling more like ironically missing Spain. Like now, for the first time, this is happening to me.
You know, living in Russia, I often felt as if I'm a foreigner in my own land, like a stranger in my homeland. Well, it's difficult to understand maybe for you guys, but in Russia we still have this remnants of Soviet mentality. Even though more and more young people become more open-minded, and thanks to the internet development, we discover more things that were not even imaginable there before. We still have this mentality that you are not supposed to be very much different from the rest of your compatriots. But I was not satisfied with this. I always strive to learn more, to broaden my mind by studying foreign languages and discovering things that are not accessible for other people. That is how I started my whole career as an English teacher, and that led me to many different things that I really soaked in using the foreign language. And yeah, maybe that is why I kind of felt as if I'm a foreigner. And that imbalance and discrepancy between what I really am and what I feel like, that really came into place when I came to China and I became a real foreigner, you know? And that all clicked. Like, yeah, now I'm a real foreigner and I can just be myself. This feeling is it's a very good feeling. It's inspiring. It's liberating in a way, because really you can do whatever you want and just be yourself.
Well, I think this term expat for me is like quite interesting, because I've always felt like an expat. Even in Brazil, I've never felt like I'm like completely Brazilian. Not that I am, averse to Brazilian culture. I have also lots of aspects of Brazilian culture within my life and within myself. But I think I just don't feel like I belong to a culture. So for me, living wherever is the same. There will be differences, like, here I have like in China, I've got the language difference, which is a barrier for me right now. But I've had that in England as well, because I arrived there without any English. So it was a cultural shock, and it was like, a difference of life, because I wasn't natural from there. But I don't think that that's hard. I mean, like, if you've got an open mind and you are willing to actually get to know things and to adapt to new systems, I think, it's pretty easy. I think it's fun, actually, and I enjoy being an expat.
It definitely is different. It's challenging, and you're also going to learn to challenge yourself. because sometimes you'll be in situations where maybe you don't know how to help yourself. In your own country, you understand the system, you understand how things work. So I think you learn also to rely on other people a lot more. But at the same time, also you're a lot more independent.
I don't like this because, like, what is an expat, right? Like, I think this word is a little bit, because am I an expat or am I a migrant or am I like an immigrant? And that has like, so like this idea of expat is like this like rich foreigner that like goes and only hangs out with other like foreigners and like never integrates, never learns the language. So I hope I'm not having that expat life. But every time I move to a different country, I go into like, I want to be Chinese, you know? So I try to make friends with Chinese people and I try to learn this language. I'm not being very successful, but I am trying. So I think life as an expat in China specifically, it can be tricky because you can get stuck into that circle of foreigners. But the reality is that no matter where you are an expat, all the expats are temporary people. And if you will ever like want to feel connected to the place, you need to make friends with the locals, you know.
Expat, hard, tough. It's really difficult because you don't belong to that culture. You don't know very well how to sit, yes, how to locate yourself because you're like an ET. Yes, you don't belong to the culture, don't belong to the country. You don't feel like you belong to that place. So, yes, you must have a good reason to live abroad. It's either because you're learning something, maybe you're studying, or maybe because of money. And maybe also because you're following someone like your husband. This is not my situation. I'm here in China mainly because, first because of the opportunity to have an adventure as I was 52 when I came. And it was like kind of a last adventure going to live abroad. I've never lived abroad. And yes, and everything went maybe differently than I thought, but for the better.
Well, the first word would have to be romanticize. Like, being an expat is heavily romanticized. People think that we're somewhere traveling or taking pictures for Instagram, but really it's really normal, it's really average. It's just what you would do in your home country in another country. You wake up, you go to work, you live very normally, very average, and then something crazy happens every once in a while. But it's mostly very normal. It's a very normal life, I think. The second word would be confusing. Oh my goodness. When you live somewhere that isn't your native country, don't speak the native tongue. I mean, I walk outside and I don't know anything that's going on. And at first this would be a really weird experience for me because I'm so used to being around people that I can understand what they're saying on the train, or I know how to hail a taxi or how to order food, things like this. But when you're not in your native country and you don't speak the language, it's like everything is this wild confusion. But you learn to accept it. It's kind of nice at the same time. It's confusing, but nice at the same time. That you kind of relax in this aspect and it becomes part of your daily regimen, I guess. And the last one would be challenging, of course. It's definitely very challenging. You know, from visas to having to acclimate to a new language to finding a community where you go. It's definitely very challenging, yeah.
Well, I would say that living abroad makes you develop these skills that you wouldn't have the chance to develop if you were just living in your same country or same city. Because, for example, when you get to a different place, especially when the place is so different compared to your country, the language is different, the culture is different. When you get to this place, you start to like having to come up with mechanisms to feel comfortable in this place. So it could be, for example, going to this restaurant and then going there more and more, and then it starts to feel like it's your local restaurant or your local cafe, or that food that you eat that you start to feel like it's comfort food, even though it's very different from what you're used to eating. So I think these things are very interesting, especially when you get to the place, because when you get to the place, don't forget, if you go on your own, you have no friends, no family, no support system. So the skills, the social skills that you need to have to like meet people, go out with people, start creating your support system is sometimes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of energy, but these social skills you start getting, and then you start being more comfortable. Like even if you're a shy person, you know, when you go abroad, when you meet people from completely different backgrounds, and you start making friends, these skills are extremely important. Even I would say, like, you know, when you go back home or you live in another country, even for like the workplace, because you start to like understand people better, not only with your own perceptual filter, but now you start to broaden your mind and understand that people are different. People have different cultures, different backgrounds, and it's okay, and you can respect that, understand, and sometimes you won't like go out with this person, you know, more and more and more, but at least you kind of like respect people a bit more and try to understand them, not only from your own perspective. So I think that's a very important skill, and I think that it kind of gives you butterflies, like when you move to a new country and you don't know where you're stepping, you don't know where it's safe, you don't know where it's like a nice place to go, to visit. So these first months, weeks, are very interesting, because even going to a supermarket, like when I went to a supermarket in China at the beginning, even going to a supermarket and trying to understand what was written there on the labels of the products was an interesting experience. But also I think that like I love meeting people in general. I love meeting people. And I think that it's very nice to like still be able to meet people who are perhaps completely different from you, who didn't grow up in the same place as you, and meet these people and learn so much from them. So I think that in a way it's like a reality show, because you know, in those reality shows that people go to the confinement and they start like having to meet strangers and stuff, at the end of the day, that's all you have, you know? Even though you can call on WhatsApp, video call, and FaceTime your friends back home, your family back home, at the end of the day, that's all you have. That small community there, sometimes a big community of expats and locals, that's all you have. So you gotta, you know, be strong in those difficult days when you just wanna leave, when you just wanna speak your own language, where you just wanna eat the food that you love and you can't. Those days are the hardest ones, but I think those are the days that will help you, you know, they will help thicken your skin and like make you ready for, you know, a next biggest challenge.